everybody. Welcome to Double Shot, as opposed to the daily shots that I usually do, one each on Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates. This is going to be a shot that comes later in the day, specifically at 4 p.m. Eastern, in which we kind of go over stuff that happened in the morning, in the early afternoon, and give you a chance, as you'll see later in the program, to participate as well. I'm joined by Chris Halleck, our Steelers beat writer at DK Pittsburgh Sports, and I want to get something out of my system right off the bat. Very first show. There is no quarterback controversy. There's nothing to talk about. I wish there was. I wouldn't mind seeing Justin Fields get a real chance. Been saying that for months. I wouldn't mind seeing him play over Russell Wilson now and into the future. I think he's got a lot of things that he can offer this team that Russ can't anymore. But it's not going to happen because, Chris, look, man, if we're telling the truth here with everybody, Mike Tomlin's going to stick with Russ so long as Russ is healthy. Mike Tomlin's going to put Russ out there in Denver against his old team as long as Russ is healthy, isn't he?
Yeah, it's one game is not going to change anything. Like, yes, they won, and that's good. But one game is not going to change. Mike Tomlin even himself likes to say, all these Tomlinisms, like two is a pattern. Like that's one of his. It's got to be at least two games before you could even fathom Fields possibly jumping Russell on the depth.
Yeah, and it's got to be more in the way of performance too. And remember that it was Tomlin who was making a big case about points. Well, that's the one thing the offense didn't get you yesterday in Atlanta. Overall, though, I liked Fields and what he did out there. I understand it wasn't perfect. I understand that, the internet today is passing around the distribution chart that shows absolutely nothing thrown to the middle of the field. You got to understand what happened and why it happened. Pat Freiermuth told me yesterday in Atlanta, he goes, we weren't going to throw there, not with those two safeties that the Falcons have, and not when we had all kinds of other options to throw around it. And you know what? Other than the no touchdown thing, it worked.
No, I agree. And listen, I after rewatching the film now a couple of times this morning, I really liked Justin Fields' performance overall. I didn't think it was
really even more than we did yesterday.
Yes, specifically, and my chalk talk that's going to be coming out, like a follow up chalk talk. I looked at the throw that he had to George Pickens near the end of the first half that set up that last second field goal, right, to make it 10-9.
You love that play, dude. He's sitting next to me in the press box, and he was like, that. I'm going to do a whole article on that right there, that throw. Why?
Well, I mean, so just originally they got Jesse Bates turned around. That's not easy to do. So that's probably design. That's also, but really after watching it, that's also execution. Justin Fields, whenever he throws with anticipation, that's when everybody needs to get all excited and giddy, because the more often he does that, that's when he's going to really begin.
What do you mean by that? What's throw with anticipation?
To be able to throw early enough in which, like, you are getting ahead of where the defensive back can possibly get. So depending on the route, depending,
like when he had George cut to the inside,
he was already starting to throw it before George really got out of
beautiful ball, man. George did his part too. George, I don't want to take credit away from 14. He went down low to get it, but he understood there was a very clear communication between Fields and Pickens that, listen, I'm going to put it to the inside where only you will be able to figure out that you can go get it.
Oh yeah. That was another one too. That one.
That's the one I'm talking about. It was the one that further on the side away from us.
Yeah.
I just thought that was, I don't want to get crazy here, but that had like a Ben and AB feel to it.
Yeah.
Just that component of it was like, whoa, wow, they really kind of were on the same page there. That's cool.
Yeah, and that's George, and I don't think that might not happen if Fields doesn't get the number of reps that he got with the
all
first
summer.
Yeah.
Not just preseason, all summer. You can't underestimate that. You can't underplay that. However, you also can't overstate this idea that Tomlin is agonizing over this decision for Denver. He's not. He's going to check his injury status tomorrow before the press conference, and he's going to come out and tell everybody Russ has a calf or Russ doesn't have a calf. And that's going to be the beginning and the end of any and all discussion as it relates to quarterbacking. I can promise you that right now.
Yeah, I would be just as I would have been shocked if Russ played this past week, which obviously he didn't. I'll be shocked if Tomlin actually comes out tomorrow and says, yeah, QB1's kind of up in the air. Like,
oh, no chance. No chance. Plus, I mean, listen, Tomlin has said for years that he doesn't believe in guys losing their jobs to injuries. Now, that doesn't mean it hasn't occurred, but he said that he doesn't believe in it. He doesn't like it. So at the same time, he's the guy who, when Mason Rudolph took over for Kenny Pickett and Rudolph goes out there and starts winning games for them, Kenny comes back and says, hey, everybody, I'm here. I'm healthy. I'm ready to go. All right. And Tomlin goes, I'm sorry. And you are?
Yeah.
So there are exceptions to it.
There are. And I think if for whatever reason Russ isn't healthy enough next Sunday and Justin does have to start again, and this offense builds off of what they did in Atlanta, and they actually put a couple of, instead of getting field goals, they get a couple of touchdowns instead, and Justin looks like an even better quarterback, then that's when you kind of have to be like, okay, maybe something, it might be changing. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, guys, when we come back on Double Shot, the big headline for the day will be, oh my goodness, that defense. That defense. Chris Halleck, our beat writer covering the Steelers, was with me in Atlanta yesterday. And as God is my witness, the first Falcons series of the second half takes place. And all of a sudden, Bijan Robinson and everybody else who'd been making all kinds of things happen, especially against the left side of the Pittsburgh line, it just stopped. It came to an end.
Yeah.
And everything was done. And I turned to you and I said, I think that's it, Chris. I think they're here.
Yeah.
I think they made it.
Yeah, no, it's that's exactly what we kind of expected. I mean, shoot, it's one of the highest, if not the highest paid defense in the league. This is what they need to do.
Well, it has to be the highest. They're not paying a quarterback. Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's it. I mean, you wrote about it last night. I mean, that's it right there. That's how they're going to win football games, is with that defense doing that.
So I said to Keanu Benton, this was after the game down in the locker room, I said, that was it. Pretty much just the way I just said it now. That was it, right? You guys, he goes, no, it was over. It was over. We figured it out. There were some little tweaks and whatever. TJ Watt acknowledged this to what they were doing defensively, but not all that much. They just got solidified. And as Keanu, to his credit, pointed out, a lot of the first teamers, guys who hadn't participated in the preseason, they went out there at the beginning and they're like, whoa, we forgot what game speed was like. And some guys, including, I can say, Cam Hayward, weren't necessarily at their peak early on. But then they're like, all right, football, riding a bike. And they stay in it. And they come out for the second half. And again, all of them loaded for bear. Gave up nothing. Chris, 51 yards against. 3 first downs allowed, 0 points, 2 takeaways. And how about this? I believe that TJ can now officially have a new term coined in walk-off sack. I mean, you and I are up there. We're getting ready. We're getting our stuff to go down and whatever. And there's TJ. Boom.
Yeah.
Ball game.
Yep.
Who does that?
The best defensive player in the world. That's who does it. Even Pro Football Focus couldn't deny his greatness yesterday.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this organization. What do they do? What do they do?
Poorly grade football players. That's what they do.
Okay, all right. I don't know, because I was busy keeping a side eye on the Browns game. And how did they end up doing? Didn't catch that final score against the Cowboys. This whole performance by this group was good. It also was not entirely unexpected, but I think we all should go out of our way to maybe be honest with ourselves about one thing. We never saw this coming from the secondary.
Yeah.
Not one of us. You didn't either. Don't say you did.
No, I do think, going into the season that it's definitely an improved group, but to look that good in
Yes.
week 1, that's a little bit different. And we talked about it yesterday. I wrote about it in my Chalk Talk. When the defensive front is able to do what they did, only rushing 4 the vast majority of the time, that does make things a lot easier on the secondary. And they were opportunistic because of it. And
they're waiting for candy to fall from the sky.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And some of them talked about that. But the part that everyone's going to talk about takeaways and splash always. But a lot of what I liked about the secondary in this game was that they were on plays even when Cousins made a completion. Like they were there, with the lone exception of the obvious exception of the touchdown where Beanie Bishop was, I don't know what the heck he was doing.
Yeah, I hadn't got a chance to look at that part of the game yet. I've been looking at mainly the offense, but
He's like,
yeah. But shoot, that was the one time that Kyle Pitts was like really hurt them. Other than that, was Kyle Pitts a factor in that game?
no, he wasn't. And in fairness, he was banged up through the week in practice. But he gets open there in the back of the end zone, and Bishop just lets him go and just falls asleep. But I'm focusing on the one negative out of a sea of positives here, and that's not fair. I thought these guys were on assignment. I thought these guys showed their depth. That someone, even though Deshaun Elliott played as well as he did, and I know you were a big fan of how he fared, DeMonte Casey wasn't really any different. You didn't notice some kind of drop off when the safeties switched out. Minka, who didn't get his required interception or whatever, was still outstanding. I have to ask you about one play that Minka made, and you know which one I'm going to cite, the run stop. When you see that one on film, and I've watched that one now myself 3 times, dude, he sniffs that out from like 15 yards back.
His football IQ and his awareness
is he literally read it, Chris. He read it from afar.
That's what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. I really,
especially at that position.
Yes, because when because he has all the traits in where he can recognize something, and then he has that closing speed, that athleticism to be able to then make a play off of it. You know who else has similar type of closing speed? Nick Herbig. That's why whenever he begins to figure things out and his awareness and his football IQ continue to go up, he could become a dangerous player because he has that ability to close too. But Minka has it all, and that's why he can recognize something and then he can close right away and just immediately cut it off.
Closing speed. Speaking of Peyton Wilson's debut, catching Bijan Robinson from behind to prevent an early Atlanta touchdown. And I go up to the young man afterward and I asked him, were you aware that was Bijan? Whatever. Yeah, I was. Calls me sir. And I go, somehow I forgave him for that.
That's very
and
Wilson, seems like.
Oh my, it so is. I actually had to tell him, dude, just chill here. We're just it's just me and you, not a big deal here, right?
Yeah.
And he said, just wait a few weeks.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you about that after the game.
Yeah.
And on the flight home, he said, just wait a few weeks. I learned so much today. And what you saw from him was his raw athleticism and speed. And like you said, the closing, we know a lot of that's there. What we didn't see and what we couldn't see from this defense in such a short span was how they're going to function when they're all together.
Yeah.
But I will say that I already like a lot of the chemistry, a lot of the camaraderie, a lot of the back and forth that goes on between this group. And to that note, I want to share with everybody here a fun little video that I did with Casey and, against his will, Joey Porter Jr. DeMonte Casey, man, I don't even know where to start asking about the DBs. You guys were all over everything. How much pride is there in this room?
We take it serious in there. It's a lot of competition, so a lot of people for the be getting tally marks and get their name on the board this week. A lot of people gonna be mad. Ain't that right, Joey?
Hell yeah.
But other than that, we take pride in it, man. We enjoy it. Try to get that ball. That's what we got to do.
Now, when you guys do get the ball, I see how you guys come together and everything. Is this what you're expecting of each other this season? Can we expect this?
Yes, it's a brotherhood, man. We got to stay close. We work at one. I do my job so my brother can do his. He do his job so we can do ours.
And I mean, you guys up front did the job too to make sure that you had the pressure.
I mean, is we surprised about that?
I'm not.
Oh, because I'm not either.
No.
I just tell everybody in the back end, y'all know they going.
I want to ask you too about the offense, because the offense was out there. Your offense was out there a lot, and you guys stay fresher like that. Is that how much does that help you?
We look forward to getting to the sidelines, but staying out there for a long drive,
okay.
You gotta work yourself. You gotta get to the bikes and everything else. So I think we did a good job with it. From personnel wise, all the groups going in. So we had about 5 groups going in every time. So I think we did a good job with it.
Those guys are unbelievable, I mean, what a group of personalities that is over there. And the part that you don't even see in the picture is Dante Jackson jumping in. They're threatening to fine Jackson because he dropped the early pick. Somebody else is threatening to fine Jackson for not getting that last one to the house. Jackson's taking responsibility for it. And then there's Minka, the mother hen, over in the corner. You know what I'm talking about, right? Minka's always the only adult in that room.
Yeah.
But man, imagine if they are dynamic, Chris. Imagine if this defense is dominant's always such a strong word. I mean, they were dominant in the second half yesterday. But imagine if this defense really is that good. How does the dialogue around this team change?
I've been saying it for months now. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, if you have any hope of winning a Super Bowl, and you don't have a franchise quarterback, you have to do it with dominant defense. That's been consistent throughout the history of the game. Even in recent years, I would point back to maybe the 2015 Broncos. They didn't win because of Peyton Manning and his noodle arm at the time. They won because they had an amazing defense.
And Fitz.
Yeah, but I'm just
sorry. Sorry. I mean, he handed them the game.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I mean, just saying, like, if that defense can play that well and can be a major factor, if they can get after the quarterback. We haven't even talked about the linebackers.
No.
I mean, we talked a little bit about Peyton Wilson, but nothing about Patrick Queen, nothing about Landon Roberts. And sometimes that's actually a good thing. Because
there's a ceiling still.
Yeah. So
Queen, I think, can be a lot better than he was. I'm just going to say that.
I would agree with that
bluntly here. I'd be surprised if he wouldn't share that assessment.
No, I talked with him yesterday.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He told me, he's like, yeah, I missed some tackles and there were some things that I got to clean up, but overall,
good for him.
Yeah. But still, like, one of the big things, because he's the one calling the plays, right? He's the one in that huddle. He's got the green dot. And were there any, outside of one to Kyle Pitts, were there any busted assignments?
Nope. And we're not just talking about the second half here. I thought in the first half there were some good plays that the Falcons made. Look, these guys were outstanding. Yeah. I don't think there's any reason to mitigate or nitpick or whatever. These guys were outstanding. And if they can continue to be that, and they get stronger as the season goes. This is why I was telling everybody, stop sweating that second half of the schedule. Just win games and get better. By the time that second half happens to you, then the team that you're pulling for is one of those teams that should be feared. Following me now?
Absolutely.
Just get better. I don't want to go all unleash hell in December on everybody, but it's kind of like that, When we come back, we're gonna introduce you. Well, the whole show is an introduction to you, but we're gonna bring to you a different version of the just one question element that we have on the morning daily shots. Welcome back. Our final segment is going to be just one question, or J1Q, as we've affectionately called it for a long time on the morning daily shots. Only the difference is with this one, you, like the rest of us, are going to be on video. You're going to share your thoughts. Just record it like a selfie, like you're doing it at like Disneyland or something, or sending something back to grandma. You just hold the phone up in front of your face and say, something in the form, ideally, of a question. Don't make it longer than 30 seconds. You don't want to be one of those like talk show callers or whatever that holds the line for a half hour. Bob Nutting is the worst person in the world, whatever else. You just, do something quick and punchy and whatever else. And I'm proud to say that our first entry comes from North Carolina and one Eric Swanson.
Hey DK, I thought the offensive line played okay on Sunday, especially in the second half. Moving forward though, who do you think our best offensive linemen are, and will they be in place in November and December for the playoff run? Thanks.
What do you got, Chris? That's actually kind of a tough question, and I'm going to admit that it crossed my mind yesterday in Atlanta in seeing Troy Fautanu in there and thinking to myself, he hasn't even gotten on the field yet. This is a first-round pick who's not even involved yet. Trying to forecast who the 5 offensive linemen are going to be, let's say, for example, by the time they get to the second half of this schedule, is something of a challenge. You go first.
I do think that, well, you're not going to see Troy right away. I didn't expect to see him in week 1 because he still is kind of recovering from that knee. He's not 100%. It's not a surprise that he didn't start. But I do think at some point, it might be by the second half of the schedule, but definitely by the end of the season, I do think you will see the left to right that everybody wants to see. Broderick Jones on the left, Isaac Seumalo when he's healthy, when he comes back and he's healthy at left guard, Zach Frazier at center, James Daniels at right guard, and then Troy Fautanu on the right side. I do think you will eventually see that one way or the other, whether that's because Dan Moore has to sub out for a half or a series or a game or whatever reason for an injury, and then that paves the way for Broderick to move over to the left side and Troy to step in. That's what I got.
There is a logical ascension here for all of this. But to me, the logical ascension flies in the face of Dan Moore being as reliable as he's been. And I know his name got dragged through the mud through parts of last season. I get that. Pass blocking wasn't his strong suit. Pass blocking definitely wasn't his strong suit when Kenny Pickett was running around to the left directly into sacks. Okay, all of a sudden, Dan Moore wasn't a problem when Mason Rudolph was just holding a spot in the pocket. Now, these guys move. Justin Fields moves. Russell Wilson moves. Dan seems to have a better feel and a lot more confidence for that setting when these guys roll out. I mean, Fields did it yesterday, by the way. It was another one of the things that he did really well, I thought.
Yeah.
But all Dan's done is prove every bleeping one of us wrong every step of the way. And I'm not ruling out that he's going to do that. And whether it's because of injury, performance, maturity, whatever, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight, basically, anybody who would say that Moore has to just automatically come off. I think someone's going to have to push him off, and I think that's going to require a pretty high level of performance.
I do.
You see the difference? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one. They're not just going to pull Dan Moore off just because Broderick Jones is the left.
No, it's not like Chooks.
Yeah.
No, it's not like Chooks Okorafor where Mike Tomlin was ready to make up anything to get Chooks off the field because Chooks was just frustrating them like crazy. That's not Dan.
Yeah.
That's not Dan. And you know what else I've heard, Chris? I've heard that Arthur Smith, specifically the offensive coordinator, loves him.
Yeah.
And he's not going to have the final say, but he's going to have a voice.
Oh, for sure. And I do think that there's other members of the coaching staff that also are pro Dan Moore. I do think there are some people on the inside that might not be as high, and they do eventually want to see Broderick on the left, Troy on the right. But I don't think that it's going to be a situation, as you said, that, as soon as it's possible, as soon as we have an excuse, like a Chooks situation, that they just yank Dan out of there. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that it might be more of an opportunistic situation in which, Dan either has to miss a game or something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be a participation thing. It's going to be an injury or something like that defines this anyway. Eric, that sounds like a cop out on our part. I'm sorry. If you want to do what Eric just did and be part of the show, then do what Eric did to be part of the show. Shoot that little video, less than 30 seconds. Email it to j1q@dkpittsburghsports.com. Chris, you have fun?
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, not too serious, not too tense, not hot take-ish or anything like that. You know,
And
we're just gonna.
I'm not just sitting here staring at a screen either. I'm actually talking and engaging.
What a concept, huh? Guys, we're gonna do it again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Hope you can join us.